Private and protected members of a class can be accessed only through the members of that class. What? Student display function. Whereas here I use scope resolution operator to define the member function outside the class. If I want to create object, then I have to use a class name as marks, then object. Object.setValue function, object.display function. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in computer science, Vidyashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysore. Today we want to start with the third session, that is the last session of classes and object chapter. In previous section, already you come to know regarding the member function, then inside class definition as well as outside class definition, how to declare that, how to access that members, how to define the member function inside the class as well as outside the class. Regarding that already you came to know. Whereas on today's class, you will come to know regarding the members of a class, how to access the members, whether it may be data or it may be function. How to access that, regarding that you will come to know. Then definition or defining object of a class, how to define an object in the class or in the main program. Then array as a members of a class, then array of objects, object as function arguments. With that you will come to know regarding the difference between structure and classes. Now one by one we'll start. The first we will members of a class, otherwise or I can say how to access all the members. For example, in the program you have data like A and B. In private section, consider in private section you have the data int A comma B. These are the data members, is it no? Now, if I want to access these data members, then we need an object. In the main program, consider in the main program we have RAD is the class name. RAD is the class name. Here in the main program, we have creating one object, RAD object. Then if I want to access this A and B, then I have to write object dot A. Then object dot B. Like that, I can able to access the data members. The data members of a class, it may be data or function. If it is function, then how to write object dot whatever function name you have. Must and should you have to use the dot operator here to access any data. Then object dot function, whichever function you want, write down that function name. By that we can able to access the function also, where it may be data or it may be function. Private and protected members of a class can be accessed only through the members of that class. By using that members we can able to access. Public data members of an object of a class can be accessed using direct member access operator, especially you have to use dot operator. If you observe this, if I want to access A value, then what I have done? Object dot A I have written. If I want to access B, then object dot B I have to write. It means that here to access the members of a class, then must and should we need dot operator. By using dot operator, we can able to access. Because for 1 marks in the exam you will to get the question, which is the operator used to access the data members. Like that you will to get the question. Or is it possible to access the data members outside the class? Like that also you may to get the question. See the syntax here. Syntax to access the data members of a class, object name dot data member, which data you are accessing. If you observe this, what I done? Object dot A is the data members. That means object name, then data member you have to write. If I want to access the function, then object name dot, compulsory here. If you observe this, dot operator to use. Object name dot member function. See here, object name dot which function. That is, for example, the function name is get data. Then object dot get data function. Like this, I can able to access the data members. That is, if I want, I can able to access the data as well as function by using this dot operator. If you have arguments, that arguments will write inside the bracket. If you don't have any argument, without also we can able to write the access the data members as well as functions. That will explain in an example program. Consider here I just want to display some values. Here that is the class name here we are given as student. On this we have three data members. One is roll number and one more is name and one more is age. Three data members. Then we are taking the function void get data. Here inside the class definition we are written and one more we are written outside the class definition also. Inside class definition here I written enter roll number, name and age. Then we will input roll number, name as well as age. All the three will input. Then we are writing void display function, whereas this is inside class definition we are written the statement, whereas for display function we are written outside the class definition. You can give the same example program for both inside class definition as well as outside class definition. Whereas if you observe here void display function, here I written outside the class. Here we open the class and here we are closed. We open the class and here we are closed. Then void student display function. Whereas here I used scope resolution operator to define the member function outside the class. And with that, this tell you that particular function, that is display function, belongs to student class. Then here I will display roll number equals roll number, name equals name, age equals age. If you observe this, here I written inside the double quotes, the roll number equals. Then it will display as it is without doing any calculation. Once again, insertion operator roll number if you write, then whatever value inside this roll number, that value there it will go to display. Then name equals insertion operator, just name here I written. It means that whatever value here we entered, that name here it will display. Then age equals, it will display the age. Then here we are data members as well as member function. Then in the main program, void main or int main, whatever thing you want you can write. If you don't have any return type, then void main you can write. The return type if you want integer, then you can write int. Then here I created one object. The object name here we consider as yes1 as the object. How to create object? Class name, then object name. The class name here we are given as student, then yes1 is the object. Then yes1 dot get data function. It means that now I can able to access this function by using this dot operator, s1 dot. Then s1 dot display function. Then this particular function, display function, automatically it will go to execute. It means that if you observe these two, then here must and should have to use dot operator to access data as well as functions. Then return type we are written as return 0. Then we are closing the main program. See here, if I want to access any members, then compulsory I need the operator, that is a dot operator. First object name, then dot operator. Then if you want, you can access data as well as function. Now is it clear? Next, we will explain the defining object of a class. How to define an object? If you observe this, how I define this is the object I told you. S1 is the object. How I define it? Before writing the object name, here I written the class name. Now is it clear? Then object is a real world entity which is definable entity with some characteristics and behavior. It is a real world entity which having some characteristics and behavior. The object is an instant of a class. It is an instant of a class. An object is normally defined in the main function only. If you observe here, in the main program only I created the object. Next, we'll explain with a syntax and example. Because this also in the annual exam you will get a question, explain defining object of a class with syntax and example. Then that definition carries 1 mark, syntax carries 2 marks and example carries 2 marks. This is the syntax. See, class, then class name here you have to write. Then in private section, whatever data you have, data like it may be data members or member function, define that. In public section also, data members as well as member function. Then you have to close the class. Here we have opened the class and here we have closed it. Then afterwards you have to write the class name, then object 1. That is object name 1, object name 2, like that one by one we are declaring. For example, consider a class, the class name is ant. On this, we have datas, whatever may be the datas and whatever may be the function. Then here we are closing the class. After closing the class, now we have to create an object. What is the class name here we are given? Add. Then how many objects you want? You can write object 1, comma object 2, like that. All the object one by one you have to write. That means after closing the class or in the main program, we are creating the object. See, if I want to create object, then how to create? First I have to write the class name. Whatever class name here I given, write in the same name. Then object 1, object 2. How many number of objects you want? You can declare by using this comma operator. Finally, you have to put semicolon to stop that. Now is it clear? Now we'll explain array as members of a class. Array as a members of a class. If I want, I can declare array is also one of the members inside the class. That is, array can be used as data members of a class. It is possible to use array as a member data of a class type. Member data of a class type we can declare here. Now see this example. Here I want to read values into an array and display the same values. To display the same values. I am not doing any calculation by using arrays. I want to display the values, input the value and then I want to display. Here consider the class name we are given as marks. On this we are declaring this is array. Array int a of 5. Here I declare. It means that maximum 5 elements, all the 5 elements of type integer stored by the same name m. Then int I, whichever variable you want, declare that. Then here in public section, word set value one function and one more is word display function. Two functions here are taken. One is set value and one more is display function. Whereas here I open the class and here we are closing the class. But if you observe here, I use this scope resolution operator. This scope resolution operator helps to define the member function outside the class. If you observe here, void is the return type, then marks is the class name, scope resolution operator, set value. We are writing the statement set value function, then void. Then inside this, we are writing the statement enter marks, then for I equals 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus m of I here we are written. It means that here we are inputting the value of type array format. That is first type, first value here it will take. For example, that is m of 0 value it will take. Then m of 1, m of 2, then m of 3, then m of 4. Because in this program we are written I is less than 5. First position it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Less than 5 means it will take 4. See in m of I, all the values we are input here. That means whatever value we want, that we can give. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the values. Then in display function, see out marks are will display all the values. That is starts from I equals 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. Then see out set W4. Set W4 is used to give the width in between the values. 4 values in between I want to give. M of I, then first will display 1. Then the I value will increases to 1. First time it is 0, now I value increases to 2. Then it will display 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. All the values here I can able to display. Here I am closing this function. And here we have opened one function and here also we have opened as well as closed one function. And here we are closed with the class. Now, if you observe this, in the main program, we are creating the object. That is, A is the object. If I want to create object, then I have to use the class name as marks, then object. Object.setValue function, object.display function. Now is it clear? Now here we are closed with the main program. It means that this is the object, this is the class name, this is the operator we are using to access that member function, that is set value, as well as display function. Now is it clear? Next, we will explain regarding array of objects. What do you mean by this array of objects? Objects also in the format of arrays we can able to declare. that is array having class type element is known as array of object. Class type element is known as array of object. An array of object is declared after the class definition and it is defined in the same way as any other array. Same we will declare in normal array format, here also we'll declare. If you observe this, here it is data members in the array format. But now what I want, objects should be, must and should be in array format. If you observe this example, here the class name we are given as employee. Here this is array as a data members. Here for a name I given maximum 10 character data type and then one more is age. Then in public section, void get data, void display function. Here we have opened the class and here we are closing. Then we are creating object. Object if I want to create, then what is the class name? Employee supervisor I given. Inside the bracket, 3 here we have mentioned. It means that three supervisor values I can able to access here. 3 objects of supervisor. Next, one more employee, sales executives of 5. 5 sales executive object I can able to create. Then employee, team leader of 10. It means that 10 team leader objects I can able to create. It means that if I want, I can able to create objects also array format as well as data also array format I can able to create. Now is it clear for all of you? Next we'll discuss about object as function arguments. Objects as function arguments. Then what do you mean by that? If I want, I can pass in 2 methods. One is called by value and one more is called by reference. That we'll explain now. That is function can receive an object as function argument. That is a function can receive object as function argument format also it can receive. This is similar to any other data being sent as function argument. An object can be passed to a function in 2 ways. One is passed by value and one more is passed by reference. In 2 methods we can able to pass the values or arguments. One is passed by value and one more is passed by reference. The pass by value copy of entire object is passed to a function, whereas pass by reference only address of an object is transferred to the function. There are 2 methods to pass. One is call by value and one more is call by reference. Now we'll explain one by one. Call by or pass by value or pass by value or call by value also you can say. In pass by value, the copy of an object is passed to the function. Copy here it will transfer, not the original data. The function creates its own copy of the object and it uses it. Consider we have one main program. This is the main program and one more is subprogram. Consider one main program and one more is subprogram. Whereas in call by value, the main program will send the values. Whichever values for that program we require, it will send the value. But what the subprogram will do, it creates its own copy of the object. It creates its own copy. For example, in the main program, I am passing A and B values. Here, it will take the same values. Here also, it will take the same values, but it takes a copy of the data. Whatever value A and B I given, it will take, for example, A1 and A2, like that. It takes a copy of the data and it will work on that. The function creates its own copy of the data and it uses it. The main program will pass the argument. The subprogram will take the copy of the data and then it will work on that. Therefore, changes made to the object inside the function do not affect the original value. If I change it A1 or A2 by some other value, for example, A1 equals 6 and A2 equals, for example, 7 like that. If I want to change any values here, that will not affect the main program because it takes a copy of the data and it will work on that. That's why if there is any change made in the value, that will not affect in the main program. That is pass by value or call by value. Now is it clear? Next, pass by reference or call by reference. In call by reference, in pass by reference, when an address of an object is passed to the function directly works on the original objects used in the function call. It means that the same thing. Consider this is the main program. This is the subprogram. The main program send the arguments, for example, A and B. The subprogram will take the value as it is, A and B only, and it will work on that. If there is any change, for example, in A and B value, if they change it, A equals A minus 6, B equals B minus 8, like that, then it affects the main program because it directly takes the data as it is, whatever address they given on that address, whatever data they given, that it will take and it will works on that. In this means changes made to the object inside the function will reflect the original object. See, here A and B I changed it. Here also the A and B will value changes. Whereas if you observe in call by value, it sends the A and B value, but the subprogram will do the copy of the data and it will works on that. That's why there is no any problem to the main program in the values. Whereas if you observe in call by reference, here it will not take the copy of the data, reference, whatever address they are given on that address, whichever data we have, it takes the data as it is. As it is, it will take the data and it will works on that. That's why if there is any change made in the subprogram, that also affects the main program also. Will reflect the original object because the function making changes in the original object itself. And the original data only, it will make the changes and it will works on that. That's why if there is any change, that also affects the main program also. Now, the last concept on this chapter, that is the difference between structure and classes. Whereas structure is defined with the keyword struct. Compulsory in structure, we are using the keyword struct, whereas in the class, we are using the keyword class. In the structure concept, we will use the keyword struct, whereas in class concept, we are using the keyword class. All the members of the structure are public by default. Here we does not going to get any access specifier. All the members or must and should by default itself it will be public. Whereas if you come on classes, by default all the members are private by default. Defaultly it will take private, whereas here in default it will take it as public. Structure cannot be inherit. We cannot get inherited structure inside one class, one more class, or one class behavior transfer to another class behavior. Whereas that will get a class concept, inheritance concept we are getting. Whereas here in structure we are not going to get any inherited concept. Then a structure contains only data members, whereas here the class contains both data as well as functions. It contains both data as well as functions. There is no data hiding features. We cannot hide any data. Whereas here we can able to hide the data, whether it's a private or public or a protected. We can able to hide the data, whereas here we cannot able to hide the data. This is the major difference. Whereas on today's class you come to know regarding already data members, how to access that, that is by using dot operator we are accessing. The syntax is here object name, then data members or object name as well as member function you can able to write. Then this is the example program. Then here if I want to create an object, then compulsory we need class name. See, first you have to write the class name, then all the objects one by one you have to write. Like this we can able to create the object of a class. Then array as a members of a class is nothing but here that we can able to take it as a members. The data members can also be in array format. Then member function object is a function arguments. That is, here I can able to pass by value as well as pass by reference. On two methods I can able to pass the objects. Whereas in pass by value, I send the copy from the main program. We'll send the copy of the data to the subprogram, and on that copy the subprogram will work. That's why if there is any change made in the subprogram, that will not affect the main program. Whereas in pass by reference, the main program will send the data. The subprogram, whatever data, whatever address they are given on that address, it will take the data as it is and it will work on that. If there is any change made in the subprogram, that also affects the main program. Whereas the last concept, struct is the keyword, class is the keyword, default public, default private. Inheritance concept is not at all there in structure. Whereas here we are inheritance concept, data members, only data members we have, whereas here data members as well as member function both we have. Now is it clear? Next, then with that we have some few questions that in the exam you may want to get the question, what is an object? It is a real-time entity. Is it possible to access data members outside the class? Yes, it is possible. what is meant by array of objects, what do you mean by member function? Member function is nothing but set of operation. What do you mean by data encapsulation? What do you mean by data abstraction? Mention the operator used to access members of a class, that is dot operator. Which type of members can be accessed outside the class? Then what is the significance of using scope resolution operator, that is used to define the member function outside the class? Which is the default access specifier, that is private is the default access specifier, whereas in the previous class only I told you that is private is the default it will take. Here also private is the default access specifier. Then for 5 marks you may to get the questions like explain definition and declaration of a class, that is very important question. Explain inside the class with a programming, that is also important question. Then defining object of a class, that is also very important. For 5 marks you may go to get. Then explain the access specifiers, with that outside class definition. These are the 4 major questions. What that is, one is class definition declaration, inside the class, outside the class, access specifier, object of a class. Only 5 major questions on this chapter you have to study. Next class we will meet with new chapter. Thank you for all of you.